Okay, I've got the bottom all cleaned up, the firewall, engine bays all cleaned up, sanded, and ready to prime. I'll spray the epoxy on it here next. Just brought it outside and blew it off real good and wiped it down so it's ready to go. See, my engine bay's all down to bare metal and cleaned up my welds. So next I'm going to push it in and tape off all the primed areas, cover them up really good, and push it into my spray booth and spray some epoxy. Okay, so I've got the bottom of the whole car cleaned up. First I cleaned it, scuffed it really good, and then I epoxied it. What I did was this area back here from the firewall back, I sprayed it with epoxy that I mixed, and I used 75% gray and 25% black. And what I was trying to do is kind of mimic what they would have done from the factory. And you know, I think from the factory, basically they mixed a lot of different colors. They used batch paint, slop gray, whatever they want to call it. Some of them had just leftover colors from other cars thrown in the primer, and they sprayed it. So what I try to do is I want to try to mimic it as close as possible to what it was when it was new. And those of you who've been watching this car know that when I bought it, it had already been tore apart and media blasted down to bare metal. So everything was gone as far as the color goes. So then what I did was I started looking at some other cars that I've got. I've got a 69 Shelby GT500 Fastback that was built in May, and then I've got a convertible, and both those cars are original yet. They've never been restored. So I started looking at them, and you know, the bottoms of them and so forth, and went back and looked at the Marty report, and lo and behold, the convertible was built the exact same day as this Boss 429, the same factory and everything, which is kind of cool. I was really surprised to see that, and again, it's on my Marty report. Both of them are exactly the same day. So I took everything, or I tried to mimic everything from the 69 GT500 convertible. Again, it was built the same day, same factory, and the bottom of it is similar color to this. So that's how I determined what I was going to do with that. The other thing, a lot of guys will say that, you know, the older cars were red oxide, which they were. I think sometime in maybe late '68, I see a lot of the 69s that are sprayed like this on the bottom. So, but I do see some signs of red oxide on them up in the front usually, and maybe some areas inside in the quarter panels and so forth. So what I did was I sprayed this front with red oxide epoxy. I wanted to use epoxy because it's a better product, seals it up so it won't rust. A lot of guys will say the bottom of these didn't really get primed, and I've seen signs of that on cars where it was bare metal and it's rusted. I didn't want to leave that bare metal, so I went ahead and epoxied it. And the problem with the epoxy is it's shinier. It's got a sheen to it. Back in the day, they would have used lacquer, I'm pretty sure. so it was a lot more dull, and I think it was just a little more, the color was off a little bit from this. So I've got some Lacquer primer, red oxide, that I bought probably 15 years ago to do a 66 bottom of a car, and I've still got that left over. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go ahead and spray the bottom of this with some lacquer just to give it the same sheen, and you'll see like the bottom of the aprons up in here, those were still red oxide from the factory, so I'll just kind of hit those a little bit. The engine bay is going to be black, so I sprayed it with black primer, so I got a good cover there. After I got everything sprayed, the next thing I did was I sprayed the sound deadener sealer on all the areas that it was from the factory, best I can. And I used a product that my friend Russell showed me, or turned me on to. I bought it. It comes in a tube, and it sprays real heavy like it did from the factory. So that's one thing it's hard to duplicate or mimic, is this heavy sound deadener. So I've got that done. I've got it done in the trunk as well. A lot of times, you know, those areas right there were splashed up. A big heavy coat right there in the center. Just usually just a slice or a path down through here where they sprayed it real heavy. You can see it here better. Real heavy, and that fogs out on both sides. And usually you see it down along here in these areas as well. So I've got all that sprayed. Got my floor sprayed, my firewall. Next step, as I said, I'm going to red oxide the bottom of this, and then I'm going to start spraying some Wimbledon white. And what I'll use there is a single stage urethane, and I'm going to spray this area here all white. In fact, I'll spray it down in here, and then the factory, they never hard taped anything. They'll spray the black kind of from the bottom here, and it's a mixture, and I got some pictures of that and where it comes around these areas. So I'm going to try to mimic that as well. I'm going to spray this area. I'll wait and do this with the car. I'm going to fog this whole area down here like it was from the factory, because it got sprayed down there. I'll spray that with the single stage as well. Some of these frame rails, I'll do the trunk, and it'll blow out around these areas. So again, I'm going to try to mimic what was done from the factory. May look a little sloppy when it's done, but that's the way it was. Okay, I just sprayed the lacquer primer on the bottom, and hopefully you can see that in the camera, how dull this is versus this has got more of a sheen to it. I didn't spray this area because I'm gonna fog that white down in there, and then it gets blacked out. I did spray up in there because that won't get painted solid, and same with under here. These are all sprayed with the lacquer. The other thing I did, forgot to mention before, is they when it ran through the factory, it set on a jig on these points here, and back here, and those didn't get painted because it was setting on the jig. And what I used is, I made this up, and what I do is I just, you can see I hold that right over those holes where those pegs go up in there from the factory, and then spray it, and you can see there's some bare metal there. Same with here. the bare metal. Again, that was done from the factory like that. It was just set on a jig, and as it got sprayed, it wasn't a perfect circle or anything. There's overspray in between the gaps and so forth. So got all those ready to go. There's two in the back, but I can't get to that back one with my rotisserie mounting there. So what I'll do is when I pull that off, I'll hand do that just a little bit on a lift. So hopefully you can see the difference in that. The primer here. And that's what it should have looked like from the factory, I think. More of a flat finish instead of that shiny stuff. So here you can see it as well, maybe a little bit better. So I just taped off this area, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my white across here, and I'll fog it into here and across the front as well. And I taped this off so I don't have to sand my hinges and stuff again. I just roughly taped it. I'll just blow it on here. I won't get this side. I'll do this side with the body. So I'm ready to start painting some white. Again, there's red oxide up underneath there as well. I think I'm ready.